Another week, another Linux and open source news video, and this week we've got the freedesktop.org project losing their free hosting. As a reminder, they host Mesa, Wayland, x.org and a lot of other projects. Their hosting is extremely expensive, and losing access to free hosting is a big deal for the entire community. We also have Debian leaving Twitter or X because it contradicts everything the distro stands for. We've got the release of the GNOME 48 Alpha and a lot of other stuff, including this segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, your all-in-one platform to create, manage, and publish your own website. Squarespace has really easy tools to make sure anyone can end up with a nice-looking, well-optimized website, no matter if they know how to code or not. They have what they call their blueprint system, which lets you pick from a variety of templates that are pre-built and will suit any type of website, whether it's a simple blog, an online store, a video platform, whatever. On top of that, to go further, Squarespace has their own design engine to create your own pages. You can just drag and drop elements where you want them, and you can change the colors, the fonts, and just tweak the template however you want. And once you have something you like, you can add extra features like creating your own online shop, complete with a payment system that handles credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and more. So check out squarespace.com/theLinuxExperiment, the link is in the description, so you can give Squarespace a shot and you'll also get 10% off your first website or domain name purchase. So the freedesktop.org project has a problem, a hosting or cloud infrastructure problem. They used to rely on Google Cloud a few years ago, but they ran out of free credits to use that, so they had to move to something else. A hosting company called Equinix sponsored them for a while. They got free hosting from them for about 5 years. But this is now over. Equinix gave the freedesktop.org project 3 months to find another provider. It's apparently going to be very difficult to make this transition go smoothly, and the freedesktop.org project is asking for help to find a new hosting solution and to prepare that migration. As a reminder, if you're thinking why we should bother, this project handles all the code for the development of the Mesa drivers for x.org, for Wayland, for all the portals, and a lot of other open source projects. It is a giant in terms of how important it is to the Linux desktop. The problem is, this project uses about 50 terabytes of bandwidth per month, and what Equinix gave them for free was roughly equivalent to $24,000 per month, meaning paying this themselves is going to be very hard. This project is extremely important, everything it hosts is crucial, it's really vital to the continued growth of Linux, but I don't think a lot of companies directly donate a lot of money to them. They mostly donate developer time to the relevant projects. Hopefully they can find someone who hosts them, or at least various providers that agree to host various parts of the project, so someone from Mesa, someone from x.org, someone from Wayland, that would work as well. I don't think it's insane to expect Amazon, Microsoft, Google, or any other giant company making boatloads of money out of Linux and of, at the very least, Mesa, to offer this kind of hosting, but also do we want these companies to kind of have power over the project by providing them with the hosting? And also, they've shown that they're completely unethical again and again, so why would they support a project that is crucial to their own cloud efforts? They probably won't. Now, Debian announced that they would ditch their X or their Twitter account this week. They did it relatively quickly, it's just a basic announcement saying that this social network evolved into a place where people they care about don't feel safe. They retain their Mastodon account and they will remain on Facebook for now, despite the recent moderation guideline changes. But basically, Debian is a distro that has a social contract, a code of conduct, and a diversity statement. And what X has turned into directly goes against all of these values, meaning anyone who engages with Debian's posts on X will be confronted with behaviors that break all of these codes of conduct and all of these ethical principles. Debian on X cannot block or punish these behaviors because you can only block or mute people for you yourself, but you can't remove the post from these people so others aren't harassed and aren't confronted with that. Basically, you don't have the tools to moderate your own community as you would on other platforms, and that seems to be the reason why Debian is leaving, because they can't guarantee that their own principles and statements are respected if you interact with the Debian account on X. Apparently they made a longer statement but didn't publish it. It's hidden in a GitLab commit, and it went into more details. It said that the behavior of X itself as a platform was counter to the ethical principles upheld when working on free software as a whole and on Debian specifically. And this statement said that they didn't want to be present in a place where abuse happens without consequences. And of course there is pushback against this decision. Some people are saying Debian is woke, which, if you believe woke means anything, then Debian was already woke way before they left X and Twitter. Just look at their various codes of conduct. If you didn't know that, you didn't know anything about Debian. And some people try to say this went against free speech, which first is not the case, because you can still say anything about Debian you want, and they have other avenues where you can talk. And second, free speech has never really been linked to free software in any real logical way. Now, GNOME 48 got an alpha release this week, before its stable one in March. There are a bunch of things in there that should really make users' lives easier, like Nautilus getting faster at loading thumbnails, a better calendar event editing dialog, the image viewer gaining image editing capabilities, at least very basic one like rotation, cropping or flipping. You'll also get a new libadwaita audio player by default, which is called Decibels. It just plays single files, it doesn't do playlists or music libraries, but it's still something that GNOME did not have previously. The Wayland compositor can now support the timing and queuing protocols, something Valve worked on, and that should smooth frame timings and reduce latency, notably for Vulkan apps, as in you'll get a better gaming experience on GNOME. You can also expect the screen time options in there with a dedicated page to track your computer's usage, although that page is disabled by default for now because it's not completely ready. There's also the ability to have notifications to tell you to take a break or rest your eyes or to move a little. The settings have some changes to how you handle the power options, notably letting you limit the battery's max charge, and some more granular settings for power management, screen locking, all around. Epiphany's web apps are also now supported in the application settings, meaning you can set their permissions and their notifications. Epiphany, GNOME's web browser, now has a better browser history dialog, and it also gained a lot of fixes and improvements, even though virtually no one uses this thing. It looks like an interesting release for GNOME. It's just the alpha, they can still add some stuff for the beta, but it looks like GNOME is slowly walking back its as little options as possible policy, which is good. I like how GNOME is simple and easy to use, but some options really lacked a graphical toggle or a way to tweak them without having to resort to a third-party tool or to a dconf command line, and it looks like the GNOME developers are adding those things progressively. I think that's pretty cool. Now, a little reminder today that Linux is not as massive and well supported as one might think. First, Linux passed a staggering 40 million lines of code in total in the kernel. It's double what the kernel contained in 2015, and it's mostly due to the monolithic nature of Linux. A lot of the drivers are just baked into the kernel itself. Drivers actually represent more than half of the code of the Linux kernel. But apparently separating these drivers from the kernel would lead to performance degradation, so it's better to keep them in. Lines of code aren't really a metric for a project's success or bloat though. Developers working on the project and maintainers are such a metric, and the kernel just lost one of these crucial maintainers. Why is that a problem? Apparently this person was basically the only person maintaining all the wireless drivers of the kernel. Kalle Valo, sorry if I'm butchering that name, worked at Qualcomm Atheros, a big provider of Wi-Fi chips, and he announced he would be stepping down from his maintainer role, also saying that there is no replacement at the moment. He not only maintained and worked on the code for Atheros Wi-Fi drivers, but he also basically maintained the entire wireless driver stack for the kernel. Now, it doesn't mean there are no developers working on the drivers themselves, but there is no leader to maintain, to review, to accept these changes directly in the kernel, which is still a big issue. It goes to show that despite all the money that is being poured into the Linux kernel, all the developer time, it's still a community-focused project where some parts are kind of like that XKCD comic where the entire web infrastructure is holding on one single brick being maintained for 20 years by a single dude in his garage. Well, that's still the sad reality of a lot of projects, including Linux. Now, Debian might be leaving Twitter, but Facebook sort of tried to leave Linux behind. After their weird, extremely oriented moderation guidelines, they have, for a while, banned and blocked a lot of posts and content that mentioned Linux, marking it as a cybersecurity threat. Now, don't worry, this has been resolved. Apparently, all affected accounts and links have been put back in place, but for a few days, various posts mentioning DistroWatch, many groups associated with Linux, have been shut down completely or had multiple posts removed. Users of DistroWatch had complained for a week that their posts were being removed, or their accounts were even locked when they posted about Linux. DistroWatch appealed that ban, but they were told that anything Linux related would stay banned as part of the cybersecurity filter, and they even locked DistroWatch's account. Obviously, this is completely dumb, because first, Linux is one of the most, if not the most used operating system by developers, so presumably Facebook just did not want anything related to dev work on their platform. And second, most of Facebook's infrastructure runs on Linux, so it's clearly not a cybersecurity threat. Now, fortunately, they realized this wasn't a normal behavior. The ban or the block has stopped. I can only speculate as to how this happened, but if I were to bet on something, it would be that Facebook just fired their moderation and fact-checking teams, which was outsourced anyway, and they instead replaced it with an AI. The AI probably saw 5 articles putting Linux and cybersecurity in the same sentence. It misinterpreted this and added Linux in the filter to block things because it is cybersecurity threats. That's about it. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Still, just stop using Facebook? Why are you using Facebook in 2025? In what might be the most hilarious dispute to happen in 2025, OpenAI is accusing another AI model called DeepSeek to have illegally used OpenAI's outputs to train itself, in a process that is apparently called distillation. DeepSeek is a recent Chinese-made model that put OpenAI and its competitors to shame by producing better results, using far less energy and compute power, and also having their model open source. Although DeepSeek cannot really be considered open source or free software according to the Open Source Initiative's definition, because only the model itself is open source, but not the training dataset, so yeah, it's not really open source. No AI model is really. Now, according to OpenAI, DeepSeek only managed to beat everyone by not doing the dataset part and the training themselves. They just used what OpenAI produced as outputs to sort of reverse engineer how the model works. And this is apparently against OpenAI's terms of service. Now, OpenAI says that they have proof of this, and honestly, yes, the evidence seems pretty compelling that DeepSeek did indeed reverse engineer what OpenAI did. And they're also saying that they need to work with the US government to protect OpenAI against this illegal copying. And sure, maybe DeepSeek stole OpenAI's hard work, which was itself based on stolen content. They never licensed anything that they used themselves. The entire output of ChatGPT and what OpenAI produces is based on content that they basically stole from people. They never respected attribution, licenses, and apparently, allegedly in some cases, copyright was not respected either. So basically, this entire situation is a thief stealing money that had been stolen by another thief. And that other thief is now complaining to the US government because their stolen money is being stolen from them. Jason Evangelo of Linux for Everyone fame, but now working at Forbes again, echoed my thoughts perfectly about the Steam Deck in a recent blog post. If you're a regular listener, you know that I've been saying for a while that the Steam Deck is just not powerful enough to keep up with titles coming out now, and that things are only getting worse. The Steam Deck is not necessarily meant to play AAA games, but a lot of the marketing hype was that it could indeed play demanding AAA PC titles compared to the usual console handhelds that are limited to bad ports or cloud-only releases. As time goes on though, it's clear that the Deck's APU is not capable of keeping up right now. And we have even worse things happening. For example, some games require ray tracing, like Indiana Jones or the next Doom installment. And this is obviously going to be more and more common as the installed user base of ray tracing capable cards grows larger. These games will never run properly on the Deck because while on paper it does support ray tracing, it just doesn't have the power to deliver good performance with that. And you might say that's fine, no one expects a handheld to play these games, but apparently the Switch 2 is going to be able to play those games at a reported $400 price point. So it's going to be newer, cheaper, and more powerful than the Steam Deck. And it also is going to run Nintendo games that a lot of people seem to enjoy for some reason. A lot of publishers said that their games are going to be coming to the Switch 2. So if the Deck doesn't wake up fast and doesn't introduce a second version, it very likely will just stop selling entirely when the Switch 2 hits the shelves. And after that, even if they release a Steam Deck 2, why would anyone buy it when you can already get a handheld that plays all the games you want at a decent performance point? And I must agree with Jason here, like all the Switch 2 talk is mostly speculation by now, but generally those leaks are pretty well substantiated, so chances are that yes, the Switch 2 is going to perform much better than the Deck, is going to be able to play recent AAA titles, as confirmed by the support of a lot of AAA developers, including, I think, Microsoft and Bethesda. So yes, the Steam Deck is going to be left behind, and it's just not going to be able to recover. Valve needs to release a Steam Deck 2. It doesn't mean it has to be cheap, it doesn't mean it has to remove the first Steam Deck from the shelves, but they need to have a flagship that is able to play every single title that releases out there. If they don't, SteamOS is just not going to keep being used, and it's just not going to work out. You could also rely on other manufacturers to do so, but in that case, you need to work with those manufacturers fast to have SteamOS powered devices on the shelves really quickly. But in the meantime, if you want a really solid Linux gaming experience, why not check out Tuxedo Computers, our sponsor? You know about them by now, they make laptops and desktops that ship with Linux out of the box, which obviously is always better than buying a computer that ships with Windows, because you know that the hardware works under Linux, even though sometimes you have to add their repo to add the relevant drivers. They have a big range of computers that should fit every price point and every need, whether you're looking for something really affordable and small form factor, or something with a touchscreen, or something for gaming, a laptop, a desktop, you name it, they have it. I only use their computers these days, and honestly I can only recommend them. I've been working with them for more than 3 years now, and there's a reason, they're just really good. So as always, the link to them is in the description. Anyway, thank you all for watching the video. You know where all the usual YouTube buttons are. Please click them to make the channel go up with the algorithm. And if you want to support the show, there are plenty of links in the description as well. Thank you all for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one next week. Bye!